Okay, so it's January 24th. We're back at the lab meeting. I just had a couple of quick things to share before we can get into the real stuff. You guys are really into 3D printing. Did you know you can 3D print hardware of various kinds?
Yeah, I saw it somewhere.
Yeah, it's if you guys have a chance to play around with this, I'd be interested if you could make some progress. Not that it's required, but occasionally, like I'll need a piece. Like in this case, I needed like a flange, and a lot of the times I'm not using these for like structural pipe applications. I'm like building a thing that so you can print these things. I think I saw this originally as like build like a desk out of like pipes, but pipe fittings are like $10 each. So if you can print one, then you're paying it for cents or whatever. So anyway, you can go on McMaster-Card. You can actually download these. If you look up whatever you're looking for, and then it says for technical drawings and 3D models, click on a part number. So when you click on the part numbers, they actually come up and you can download them in like a 3D format. So you can get the file. The problem is that they don't distribute these things as like STL or OBJs or anything that like our print software will read. So you have to convert them. I found Cat Exchanger to do that job. I don't know if there's a better way to do it, but if you guys get to that point, let me know if you come up with a better way to do that conversions. The remote sensing IJEP spring seminar speakers have been announced. I swear there's another earlier one. I'll look in my email. I think that there's one more kind of coming up in January or January. But this is the list. If you guys have the time to go to these things, they're from 12:20 to 1:10 here in Wallace. So it'd be easy to attend. These are really good usually, so good chance to kind of make more connections with the remote sensing folks. That remote sensing IJEP is a PhD program. It's a really strong program, so if you guys can kind of make friends over there, I'm sure it will benefit you. I saw this come up in my news feed, the VelaBit, a new LiDAR. Rumored to cost less than $100 and out in mid-2020. So we'll keep an eye on what this thing can do. I also got an email from Corinne Woods, who's the alumni director for CNRE. Hudson helped out with this last year, and Riley Harris. They wanted to make a map, an interactive web map of where the alumni from the college are going, because they have like sort of a year-end event, and it's kind of a nice little thing. Hudson and Riley and Josh Starner worked on it last year. It should be pretty easy to resurrect, so I volunteered us to do that. I'm thinking about making it a project for GeoViz because I think the timing works out pretty well with that, so it might be a good thing for that. But one way or the other, we'll probably try to put that back together again. Last year, not only did we do the CNRE, but that was so well received that the university actually asked us to do one. So we extended it out to the university. And it wasn't that much work once the thing's built, like it's just importing. No. So good PR for the lab and for the department, and not much work on our part. So that's kind of a win-win. This thing is pretty old. I don't even remember a lot about it. It came out over break. But this is allegedly some new NVIDIA stuff that can do some 3D modeling based on still images, which is pretty awesome. I have not tried this out, but obviously that relates to photogrammetry on our end. It'd be interesting to kind of keep tabs on this technology and see if anything useful comes out of it.
That rabbit model is used for everything.
Yeah, the Stanford bunny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it just like in the papers they like to use it?
Yeah, it's like a benchmark kind of like classification for like computer vision and 3D modeling.
Video games. That teapot I've seen a lot too. I don't know what that one is, but it's familiar.
I think it's like textures or materials.
We had our OGIS meeting, so sort of the university-wide GIS. I don't know what we call it. It's like a working group, sort of just more like sort of keep everybody that's working on GIS related stuff in touch with one another on campus, because there's people in, obviously there's a ton of in geography, but there's some all over, and so this is a good chance for us to get together. We had our meeting yesterday, and a couple of cool things came out of that. One is I don't think the new website has launched yet, but it's up, it's public, but I don't think they've officially cut it over yet. It's not quite done yet. But the new website is out. More exciting news. There's a couple of there's a big effort to kind of pool mid-range equipment, so stuff that costs like 5 to 20 grand. Trying to come up with a way to buy that in a way that everyone can use it rather than it lives in one lab and then it's kind of stuck there. So the library has been spearheading this. They purchased and have received a second Velodyne Puck unit. So now there are two. So there's one, sort of I forget the name of it. It's like the IO Studio, which is in Torgerson right now, but it's going to be moving to the Tord Bridge. And then this one is in the library. So there are two. And I actually checked out the one from the IO Studio yesterday on my way back.
Is that the one on the first floor, the studio?
Yeah.
Like innovation and outreach or something.
Yeah. They have a ton of cool stuff. So there's like two groups that I know of already on campus that do this stuff where they aggregate a bunch of like neat like cameras and just weird, cool stuff. And they're both really valuable. Yeah. So if you have some time and you're in the library, you guys have all probably seen the 3D print lab over there, right? Take a look at the stuff that they have, and complements a lot of our stuff pretty well. What was really exciting was Seth Peary, who's the enterprise GIS guy on campus, announced that he has put together a web open drone map portal for us that ties into the enterprise systems, so we can run photogrammetry via a web page. My experience, so he just announced it yesterday, it's in super beta. I couldn't even get signed up for it yesterday, so I'll try it again today. My experience with ODM, which was from 2 years ago, was that it was totally substandard.
Yeah.
Like compared to Pix4D, the models were like just way messier. And I'm as committed to open source as anybody, but like it was not close. And if you're interested in some of that stuff, I know I've got a lab report from about 2 years ago where I kind of compare outputs given the same inputs. But things change, projects evolve, so I'm going to try it again and see how well it works.
I worked with it last semester or last year with Victor.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I like put on a VM. It was fine. It wasn't like super accurate. Like if you had some cool imagery and you just want to load it up, and it's more of a nifty tool than it is like maybe
That's
like
a good way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nifty. Yeah. I just don't think that there's enough. It unfortunately it's just like this. Photogrammetry is technical enough and valuable enough that the companies that are doing it are just doing much better work than can be done open source. It's hard to compete. You need some resources, and the money is there. So, but a cool idea nevertheless, and maybe worth taking a look at. Well, we'll certainly benchmark it. It's a nice idea. I've got some research progress that I'll report on. This is kind of the top level summary. Some of this I'm going to breeze through. I got a chance to, I know Hudson's been working with this, but I got a chance to do an Entwine install. That one went pretty smoothly, so if you guys haven't installed Poodle yet, when I have a hard time pronouncing it that way, Poodle yet, you should try it. It's basically built on the same framework as Anaconda, so it's a Conda install. It goes super smoothly, and then you load it up like you'd load up an environment, and you just run the tools there. So it's neat to see these technologies sort of interlocking. I haven't actually, that reminds me, Hudson, have you done much with like Docker?
No, that was on my list of things to kind of work towards more. I think it's a framework for building and deploying the application itself.
Another way to kind of deploy an encapsulated system, and that's getting pretty popular, but I haven't done one myself either, so you should try to get familiar with that. But it went pretty smoothly. I had some trouble getting so the Entwine format is Entwine point tiles, EPT. So think of that as just sort of another LiDAR page.
JSON based like or
Yeah, it carves your tiles up, it carves your data up in little pieces for deployment. And supposedly it's one of the problems with Poetry is it's not intended to be a storage format. It was really designed to be visualization, and as a result, they don't guarantee that your data is perfectly saved. Whereas Entwine is archival, so there's no data loss if you're going to store it in Entwine. So that's the one reason to choose that over Poetry. Otherwise, they function pretty similarly. It was a little bit tricky getting these things installed because the current release of Poetry didn't support it. Maybe it does now. They were like on the cusp of releasing 1.7. So
and they're very interlocked. They talk a lot.
yeah. I had a couple of use case examples. wget is a favorite of mine for sort of scraping data off of the web for one reason or another. I'm not going to get into the details of this, but this was kind of a new use case. I needed to copy this particular thing, and so I've added these to the wiki for wget for the lab. So I won't go into the details now, but one for Earth Explorer as well. Riley was interested in using historical aerial stills, and so was Jack. Jack, did you ever actually build models from historical stills? Riley said he did. I took a look at it. I don't think that it went super well. There's not a lot of overlap for these, but somebody from University of Redlands, so it's like the university right next door to Esri, so they've got a pretty tight partnership, published a master's thesis on reconstructing, which I haven't looked at in a lot of detail yet. But the thing that I thought was really strange is when you go to download these frames, so the frames are all up on Earth Explorer. You can grab these like straight off the camera images, right? So they haven't been orthorectified. They're like original images. And the cool thing about that is that then you can use them for 3D reconstruction, right? They're just as if you flew an airplane yesterday. The problem is that they include the frames, which like, that's really weird. Yeah. So I don't know why it seems really weird to me. These days, lots of stuff gets encoded into the EXIF information on an image that includes like how the lens parameters and all of that, and that helps Pix4D do the reconstruction. So I don't know. I'd have to look into this. I know they had to sort of manually georeference like the centers, and they like crank down the accuracy level in the Pix4D. So I don't know how well this actually works. I'll have to dig into that.
And aren't those like little like tabs hanging on the side how they used to kind of line it up?
Fiducial marks or whatever.
Yeah, like you could. I remember from this like way lowest class, there's like a bunch of math to do with those marks, and then like there's an altimeter in the corner with the clock.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so like that's why they leave the frames, I think, just to like, preserve like what they were catching. Because I think there's someone like with a dial like adjusting. Okay, we're at that's.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, like the focal length or stuff like that. Maybe.
Yeah, but like there's like a little altimeter in the right corner that tells you the height or something. I'm not too sure.
Here?
Yeah, or maybe like
Like
a
a
standard
center.
they put on there.
There's
But
another thing down here. Yeah, I guess I'll have to look into it a little bit more. That's I've never dealt with such raw photogrammetric.
yeah,
before,
and
so
no one does that anymore.
I should talk to Jim Campbell. He'd know.
You get out the little stereoscopic lenses
Yeah.
Yeah,
and line them up for
those
you.
are kind of
Yeah.
cool though.
Yeah.
I also, this is, so during my PhD work, I worked on this like route asymmetry project, which is, so you guys know that I'm a little bit interested in spatial cognition, how people do things like plan routes and think about space. And so this was a fun project where if you tell people to navigate from point A to point B, they often take a different route than B to A. You'd think it would be kind of the same, but it's often not. So this is actually NIU campus, so Sam will recognize this.
Yeah.
This is the site building down here, and now we're navigating up to, I forget, it's like Gable Hall or something.
Yeah, where all the math classes are.
Yeah.
Yeah. Me and Jim, we made a comment about that. When we walk to Torgerson, we take one way. Or I do. And then when we walk back, we always take a different way.
Yeah.
Like we cut through past like the
Go up the stairs.
Yeah. I never take that way when I walk there.
So, and it's really interesting, right?
Yeah,
Because
I don't know why I do.
because the way that it appears to you at the time. So there are a couple of heuristics. I don't really want to get into this, but like so there's a couple of heuristics that people use to navigate, and one is called the least angle strategy. So the idea is that if you are navigating in your brain, you kind of know where that is. And then you take the angle you take the route that minimizes the angle, right? So this angle is bigger than that angle. So A to B, you'd go this way, and then you'd go there. But the other way, the opposite is true, right? So you'd go, this is the least angle to start with, and then you go there. There's another one called the initial straight segment, which is kind of sometimes hard to, because this is like the longest initial straight segment, right? So that the logic of that one is you take the longest initial straight segment that gets you in the ballpark of wherever you're going, rather than taking like a dog leg here and then back. Those two things kind of often go together, so it can be hard to tease them apart. Like in this case, both of those strategies apply, and we'll deal with both of those routes.
Is that for someone walking?
No, I think it's supposed to hold up in a variety of circumstances.
Okay. Because I know when I'm biking, I'll take different routes based on where stop signs are relative to hills.
Right. Yeah. More stuff can get folded onto that for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the idea is that this is operating along with a set of other criteria. You know, maybe you don't want to walk past that building because you're afraid of it or something.
Yeah.
Whatever logic you've got of like, you know, I don't want to walk on stairs, right? I was thinking of I took those little scooters on campus. But like you run into the stairs and you're like, oh, okay, now I gotta.
I feel
Wish I
like
could.
I've seen videos of people trying to do that. It ends up bad.
Yeah, they just like just full sitting straight off the stairs.
So I ran one of these experiments for my PhD, and I was one of the guys at one of the psych professors at NIU is doing a lot of spatial cognition research. So we partnered up on this. So I got a chance to talk to him a little bit about it. They're running participants through this, and so sort of they might have gathered all of their data by summer, and then we'll write that paper. But it was nice to sort of reconnect with him and make a little progress there.
Be cool to, if that scooter data was available somewhere, to like kind of analyze it. It's very, I've had like thoughts of like, all these scooters always get parked in the same place, like people like commuting off campus or whatever. People somehow get that data. I don't know if it's like chemical engineering and research or what.
Yeah, I don't know where we can get that data. A friend of mine from grad school actually wrote a paper on, I think the towns. I think he did it on DC and another town that have sort of experimented with scooters and looked at like the different styles, like where you either have to like bring them to a repository versus like just leaving them wherever and sort of monitoring use patterns.
I know Dr. Crawford's done a little bicycle network.
Yeah.
Stuff.
Okay.
I don't know if it's like the bike share or just like how
People ride bike.
Yeah.
Don't they have to give out reports too, like the city, to show that it's valuable? Like they'll do like a 6-month test or test, and they'll go, this many people rode it, this is where they rode.
Like, I guess their like thought was that they would be more dispersed around campus, but they're always like at the corners of campus.
I think that's where they pick them up at every night.
No, that's where
That's
where
where
the
people
edge
like
of the
drop
boundary.
off.
Oh, yeah,
People
like-
try to get them off campus, like right we're in Washington and I guess Otay or Washington and the
10th Street.
Yeah, that one.
Do they
That's
turn
what I'm
off?
talking about. That's
Yeah,
where
that's
people
where
like,
they stop. They won't let them go any
I
farther.
think once you get
they
past it,
geofence.
By
Yeah.
they geofence. That's what I
Yeah,
wondered.
same thing with the
Technologically, do they
field.
stop it, or does it just
Yeah.
make a rule?
In the drill field too. Drill field little geofence. You can't go on the drill field.
yeah, I think it beeps and then it just like turns off the motor, so you kind of knows to stop.
Cool.
But they like, so many people park there so much now, they have a sign there that says like scooter parking.
That's funny.
Yeah.
My mom works at BC in Richmond, and
Yeah.
she says they have a big problem with people chucking them into the James River.
Wow, vandals. That's rough.
Yeah. China has huge problems with that with bike shares.
Really?
You
People
just
just like
walk
run away.
We had them at JMU, and our thing was always just leave them on the sidewalk,
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
because you could take them off.
Oh, really?
There
That's
was like
cool.
no limit to where you, they were literally all.
it's too bad. Like, I really like having them around. Like, you know, I would
They're
love to
fun.
be able to take them to, you know, like this campus is pretty big. It'd be nice
Yeah.
to be able to like hop on one and get across campus. But yeah, the users of them make it hard for people to love them. Like, people get really angry.
So China, I guess they like really went hard on bike shares, and they had way too many. So people just like use them once and like chuck them into a giant pile.
Disposable bike shares.
Oh, that's classic.
Yeah. Well, knowing that, new state of the.
All right, so I ran across this technology over break. This was cool. This is called the Packet Squirrel, made by this sort of like hackery company called Hack5, and they make all kinds of things to like plug into USB ports and steal data and all kinds of shady stuff. But
For research only.
For research, yeah. But this thing is really great because it's a packet logger, and so you just plug in an Ethernet cable and it'll log stuff to just a little drive. We actually built one of these with a Raspberry Pi to do the same job, but it was a little finicky. Like you're never like totally sure it was doing, sort of, some grad student coded it in their spare time, and like it worked 80% of the time. But like what we wanted to do was plug this into the LiDAR, right? Because the way the Velodyne LiDAR system works is it spits it out via an Ethernet port, and you usually plug in a laptop that collects it. But like a laptop you don't need a laptop, you're just logging data. So like this is going to work a lot better. So this thing is pretty cheap, $60. I may just buy it. I won't buy it with our BT money. That'd be weird, but buy it for me. And so right, somebody's gonna wonder why.
Yeah. So is the Velodyne output proprietary format?
No, it's open. It's actually really clever. So it spits it out in what's called a PCAP file. So they encode all of the data that's coming off the LiDAR scanner in a network packet. And then they published how to get it back out. It's actually not that hard. So I wrote a little Python reader that will read it. But yeah, PCAP is a standard in the industry. So it's really quite good. They did a good job with that. I'd love to meet the person at Velodyne, because Velodyne used to be like an audio company. Like they made like speakers, and how they got into LiDAR, I would love to hear the story on that. They must have had some engineer that was like,
Sound waves.
hey, I bet I can make a. What's that?
Velodyne is normally about like bikes.
Yeah.
And I don't know what Dyne is, but there's also like Rocketdyne. They make rock.
Yeah, I don't know where Dyne comes from. First usage I can think of is Terminator.
A unit of force that acting on mass of 1 gram.
Right. It just sounds good then.
Yeah.
Like force.
This is really big news for the lab. So I put some equipment orders in around break. So some new toys we're getting. Some of these things are in, and I should have brought them in. I'll bring them in after the meeting. But I got the Ronin S
Those things are
gimbal.
so awesome.
It is awesome. I'll bring it in. I got the Ryko Z1 360-degree camera. This is an 8K spherical camera.
Would you put that in the drone?
Yeah. Yeah. Because one of the problems with the 360, so we've got the $200 model of that, but it's only HD, which when you're spreading all those pixels out over a whole sphere is like the resolution is not great when you have to actually use it. Like it looks good if you're not paying too close of attention. But the 8K thing is really, I snapped a couple pictures. I should have included one, but it is much better. I got a Reach RS2, so not that we don't have enough GPS units laying around, but the RS2 is sort of about as good as it gets for that.
Do we have it now? Or?
It just shipped, so we just got a notification, so it will probably be here in another week or so. Which I think you still need to get me the data from.
Which I would like to compare the two.
I would like to compare it. Well, you can do that.
Okay.
I'm super interested. The idea is I want to take probably the RS1. We'll have to figure out the best way to do this. Take one of our units and we're going to mount it on the roof of Wallace, and then it will serve as a caster and a correction for everything in the area. Yeah. So we'll have to talk to Dave Carroll probably, because he's got some weather stuff he either is or was going to or will put on the roof, some meteorological instruments. So we'll tie into whatever he's doing and partner up. And
There's like a core center. I think there's 2 of them in this area.
They don't work.
Yeah, they don't work very well.
Right,
They're pretty old, but
Yeah.
I know that we have them.
Oh, no, I've tried to use them before, and they're just like, it's offline. So
yeah, the one at the airport's been dead for a long time. I don't know.
There's one at Radford, which
that one's dead.
is not very great. Yeah.
So how do you so if someone anyone can use that as like a
Yeah.
like
For
ping the
correction.
or you
So
like
they
have
do it
one
in
set
2
aside?
ways. One is that there's a radio that will broadcast, so you can just get the radio correction. Or that's why I had the slide in here. I took a slide out and I couldn't remember why it was in there. You set up what's called an N-trip caster or an Ntrip server. I forget which way it goes. I feel like it's a caster is the one that supplies the corrections on the server. Strangely, is the one that receives them, which is not quite right. But they both sort of imply sending data out. So I'm not sure which one's which. But anyway, you can post that up to like it's essentially there's a website that collects this and will serve it back out again for free. So somebody has kind of supplied the means to do that, but called Ntrip casters, or Ntrip is the system.
Did you do the whole like with the lower radio and stuff like antenna?
I think that one is built in on that one, and if not, we will get it.
Okay.
I'm definitely interested in having that.
Because you need to get an extra one for the M+.
We will do that too. That's a good point. Yep.
Cool.
Yeah, that makes life a lot easier because you can pull these things off of like your internet connection. So if you've got your phone, usually what happens is your phone talks to it and pulls the correction via the phone. But it would be a lot nicer if there just wasn't, we didn't need that in the loop. So we'll get the LoRa.
It's cool. It's fun to play around with and test out. So
Yeah.
You're really super accurate measurements.
dude, seriously, like it's crazy. And
Like how much would it boost? Like if you were just walking out there with the GPS unit, how much would
like
you correct it by?
well, so you still have to do correction, like to get like best accuracy you can do. You still have to do like correction space, like through core system. But if you had the LoRa and another unit and that, so the two units talk to each other via the LoRa radio, and so it becomes an RTK system, and they're correcting each other, and it reduces if they have good line of sight or even just good connection through the radio system. Then you can get down to like a change in their position recognition of like 0.001 meters, like super fine.
Yeah, certainly within less than 5 centimeters.
Yeah.
It's a little bit different as whether if you know that it's stationary, it's easier. But if it's moving, it's still pretty good.
And I mean that's like survey grade, like that's like the use of the the RS2 and stuff. Like if you use a pair of them, that's definitely going to get you to get contracts for surveys. So especially in, I don't know about the M+, the little square thing, that you could eventually, I mean, if you messed with it and got it to communicate with the RS2, you could sit there and probably market yourself as doing surveys for like UAV surveys. But that you have to have a disclaimer because you don't know. It's hard to figure out that whole accuracy thing. So,
It's surprisingly hard, actually.
Yeah.
And one thing I'll say is that the published accuracies of these things are almost always wrong. Like
It's like
Like you get better or they're
worse. They're
Oh.
actually worse than they publish by
it's like
A lot.
highway MPGs for cars. It's like optimum
Oh,
conditions.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
there's
Yeah,
no atmosphere.
one time we got it within like it's
Yeah.
And the way you know is you go out for like repeat measurements, right? So if you go out and you stick it on exactly the same spot, you record it one day and you come back again, you put it on the same spot and they're off by a meter, there's no way the accuracy of that system is 5 centimeters.
Yeah,
and that's
got it.
kind of been my experience with some of the like I got the first Kickstarter version of the MLID Reach. Like it doesn't even have a case. It's substantially worse than, I mean, it's better than nothing, but it's not. But a friend, the reason I invested in this is a friend of mine that's an he's an archaeologist and he does ground penetrating radar surveys. And so he and I have been talking about, like, he's got to like manually make a grid. And he's been sort of eyeing this technology for a long time because if he can he's doing really fine scanning. So if it's off by a meter, it's way too far off for him.
Yeah.
So he's hoping that this can do it. So we did a test with it, and it convinced me that this is worth the money. So we'll see if it works.
And it's supposed to be good, better in foliage than the first RS Plus because of the multi-band system.
Yeah.
So, like that's kind of what matters to me.
Which is why I'm thinking about putting, maybe we don't want to put our best units on the roof, right?
Yeah.
Like we'll put, like it might be the case that if we put one of those Reach M pluses or whatever on the roof, if it knows where it is and if that's solid, then the corrections for that might be just as good as the corrections off of one of these other bands. I don't know.
Well, I always what I've read as I thought the M Plus is only for receiving corrections. It's not, you can't put it out.
You can
Like,
put it out.
I thought you couldn't put it out with the M Plus. Cool. All right.
Yeah, you definitely can. You can, yeah.
Okay.
Whether they're better or worse than
Yeah.
than the RS2. So we'll find out. We'll find out. We'll see. Is it better to put an RS2 on the roof, and you know, or could we, if we put the RS on the roof, is that good enough?
Oh yeah.
True. All right. Last little bit here on equipment stuff. I got the Intel RealSense on order. This is a LiDAR unit for, what did I pay for this? I don't know, $200 or something like that. Ships in mid-April. That's huge. If we can, I mean, right now the Velodyne LiDAR systems are really old, right? Like the Puck came out years ago or something, and you know, some of the other stuff has been out for 5 or 6 years. So that, relatively speaking, that's relatively old technology. So if this works, like I hope it's going to work, we'll cut over and we won't be using Velodyne anymore. We'll start moving to the new stuff. Velodyne's got their own solid state stuff, but to see Intel putting this out is exciting.
How big is that? How big around?
Looks pretty small. That's, I know that little tripod is like this big, so it's probably
Size of
that
an
big.
Alexa speak, Alexa Echo Dot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's probably what they use the casing for it.
I got a chance to try some of this stuff out. So the Ronin S is in my office. I'll bring that in after the meeting. You have to mechanically balance it. So these little armatures, like this is like a little like lock. So you just undo it. So you basically balance like an old school scale, like at the doctor's office where they move the weights around. And they do that to relieve the pressure on the motors, right? So the motors don't have to work as hard if it's nicely balanced to start with. There's a little app that you have, which can tell you like if it's balanced or not. It's a little bit heavy, like the whole unit is beefy, but it seems to work really well. I don't know if like, you know, this is gonna block LiDAR. So I don't know if we're gonna need to figure out, like, is that gonna be enough to matter? Like, I don't know, you're gonna be moving around, so maybe it's not gonna matter, but we'll see. I also bought an Oculus Quest. This is, I think, Hudson got to see yesterday. I'll bring that in too. No wires, so that's an amazing experience. Like, it really is nice to not be tethered. I bought the Oculus Rift S over break for myself, and it was nice just not to have to worry about these like sensors. They all have cameras on them now that can you do the room detection. The Quest has hand detection, which I tried out yesterday and works okay. So you don't even need a controller anymore. Like it's got cameras on it, so it can like see what you're doing while you're doing it. You can plug in the Quest to a computer to get full access. So the Quest library itself is a little on the limited side, but with a link cable, you can access it just like a Rift, so you can use your whole library. Google Earth does not run on it wirelessly right now. You have to plug in, but I expect that that's probably going to change.
How's the resolution on the actual? Is
Great. Yeah.
it better than that one?
Yes, I think
Okay.
that's right. I can't remember
Yeah,
this. I can't remember where the.
comparable, I think. It's a cheaper overall system, I believe, but yeah, it's comparable, if not better.
I think the resolution is better than that one. I don't know if it's better than the new Rift S, like that, because this is like the
Right.
CB, I don't know, C2 or whatever. But it's good, and they say that this one has better blacks. Like the Rift S is like more like a gray, like, and the colors are truer on this. They say. I
Use like OLED or something like that.
Because we had some problems with that one, like trying to see a reticle and stuff. Just wasn't working
Yeah.
too well.
The gauges.
Yeah, the gauges weren't looking the best.
oh really?
Yeah,
Cockpit.
the
Yeah.
cockpit, or even just doing the tank stuff. Like you couldn't see far away. Like it was bad.
Yeah.
Heavy work stuff then.
It was heavy work.
Yeah.
I mean, it was graphics.
I felt like the
Like, but I played Beat Saber the other day. My wife was like, that's not work.
Can be.
Can't be.
there's a potential for what I'm experiencing this.
Yeah, that's how we justified it.
The really cool thing, and this was a bit of a bet on my part, was I wasn't sure how I was going to handle the 3D content that like Hudson's building, whether that would run. It runs awesome. In fact, the browser for the Quest is better than the browser that's built into the regular Rift. You can bring up web pages, and when you click on it, it's super seamless. So they did a good job with that. So it's going to be really good for demos. Other bits of news, Yang got funding to build a really nice Linux server. So there's a new $10,000 to $12,000 Linux machine getting built over the next couple of months. So that's exciting. And Craig Ramsayer got funding for a department level NAS. So Jack and I have been talking a little bit about that over the break, building one for the lab. But if we're going to have a department level one, that's even better. We don't have to maintain it. So. Okay, lab focused stuff that I want to kind of do moving forward. Hudson has a lot of coding to do. So that's kind of his focus. You and I have to talk today because the AutoCarto deadline is today. I think we can basically take your print. All they want is an extended abstract. So what I think I'd do is take your proposal and kind of massage it a little bit and get it into a abstract form. But they're accepting submissions as works in progress. I'm on the organizing committee for that conference, so they're really kind of pushing hard to get. I was kind of not sure whether I wanted to submit anything or not, but I have to go anyway. So you want to go?
Good. It's in DC, right?
It's at Esri. Actually, it's at Redlands. So Esri is hosting it, and there are student scholarships.
That will have to be a big, yeah.
Let's talk
factor.
after. Yeah. Okay. The deadline for the student scholarship applications is like the 14th of February, so you've got time to decide.
Okay.
But let's talk after the meeting.
Yeah, let's put it out.
Everybody else, this semester is really all about putting together your proposals. That's not an end of the semester thing. That's a early part of the semester thing. I don't want to get this. I don't want to be doing this in April. I want to be doing this in February. So gear up to get that done. We've talked. Some of us have already talked individually about this stuff. Basically, the lit reviews are all going to need to get repackaged and pared down. So they have to be short. The proposals that I'm looking for are short, 3 to 5 pages, no longer. That's a strict requirement. And the reason is that real proposals are short. So we can't, there's no sense in building a 15-page proposal and it's just a waste. So let's make it short and good. Things to work on: running one solid data use case. What you want to try to do is have run something like what you're going to be running for your thesis by February. So you've already got photogrammetric data that I had gathered, so you're already sort of piecing that together. That means you need to plan on getting a drone flight, doing some data acquisition at a beach, and starting to look at the data and seeing what it's going to be like. That's a thing to do early rather than late. You're already in the progress of getting some of the data. Colleen, you're already starting to do some of the least cost path modeling. So everybody's got a toe in the water on this already. We just want to push that just a little bit farther so that when it gets to be proposal time and we're sitting down, you know exactly what your data is going to look like, and you know exactly how it's going to need to get processed. And then filling in project pages on the GitHub wiki. That's important to me. I know it's a little bit redundant in some cases. There's stuff that you're sort of, you've got references or you've got other things kind of in different formats. But I think I put together, I won't load it up now, but I put together one for Earl's project. And his is less complete than what you guys will do. But what I want this to be is sort of an archive for students moving forward, because a lot of grad students, next year's grad students or 5 years from now, grad students may want to build on what you've done, right? And if we've got good accessible records of what you've done, the data that you used, and it's short, you're not going to write, these wiki pages aren't the thesis, but they're sort of like the data, the quick executive summary, and this is going to operate kind of like a dashboard for me to sort of check in on your progress as you go. So it's a little experimental, but I think it's not, I don't want it to be redundant work. It's going to fold right into like the proposal and your thesis. And so it's all going to be related. It's not extra work, I don't think. Meetings can be any day kind of moving forward. They don't need to be on Fridays. I'm generally really free on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I do have some time on Fridays. Today's a little bit limited. I teach GeoVis in the afternoon and you guys have colloquium. And today I've got a meeting with Riley. So if we want to do individual meetings, we can do that today. We can also schedule some for next week. As long as I'm here, I'll do whatever you guys want. And I'm also more free, if I'm in and the door is open, feel free to drop in and ask questions. I'll let you know if I've got, once in a while, I'll have like a thing I got to get done. And then in that case, I'll just say like, can't do it right now. Don't be offended. just yeah, drop by any time with questions. It's very welcome. And that's it for me. All right, long again as usual. Sorry, everybody. Who's up next?
So-
just go around the room, I guess.
Riley and I have a class that meets at 11:15 on Fridays. I didn't know how you would best up.
Oh yeah, did you go?
No, I mean, so it got canceled this morning.
Oh okay.
Yeah. Maybe the time
You're
is-
late.
You got canceled this morning?
Yeah, she has a doctor's appointment or something.
Oh okay.
But yeah, for the rest of the semester.
All right, so we'll have you go first.
Sounds good.
We're talking like in the future, yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know. It was like,
Thank you.
It's gonna be nice having that Linux server.
Yeah.
I was thinking it'd be cool if we did GitHub works really good for us, but we could do like a internal repository like server for
Maybe. The nice thing about GitHub is there's zero maintenance, right?
That's
So and that's worth a lot.
yeah,
Like I don't want to maintain
sounds good.
crap like that. It's really easy to lose time on it. So, but I think it will be useful for a lot of other stuff. Same thing with the NAS. Like, would I like a lab NAS? Like, sure, but I'd like more not having to maintain it. So if I can just throw money at throw some hard drives and Craig's, then that works for me too.
So, been doing a lot with She et al. Semester. I also have my semester goals and a couple of papers that I've read over the past couple of days. It was what I'm going to talk about today. So this is my updated version of my She et al. Stuff. This is just the functions that I've had to write. The top one isn't complete at the moment, but it's an event. I'm gonna have another one too. That's for planimetric or plan form curvature. It's similar, but it's got a little bit different of stuff. But all the math / stuff that I've read this morning is up on this board right here. And I had Jack help me out with understanding the derivatives because I did not do well on calculus too. So it was pretty rough. But yeah, so basically to explain here is like you have your matrix and identifying each individual cell, like part of the matrix, your cell size, which is your D on there. So Fy is your first order derivative in the y direction, Fyy second order derivative, the y direction, X, same thing, X direction, XX, second order, X direction. And Xy is a mixed partial derivative, which took me like an hour in itself to figure out this morning and find. And I found it through somebody. Somebody had a thing on GitHub, and it was like C. Evans method, and so it was in there. So,
So one of the good things to do, I mean, the way that these things usually work is, so you're pulling in Z1, Z2, Z3. These are just corners of a 3x3 matrix, right?
Yeah.
Or not corners, but
yeah,
pieces of it, right?
Yeah.
This one, that one, that one. It's often helpful to think about like what is going on with those to see, because all of these are essentially pixels divided by a thing, right? So if you
Yeah.
start to think of them as like, it's the top 2 pixels minus the bottom 2 pixels divided by the,
yeah,
like it starts to make a little bit more sense
yeah.
instead of looking at it like that, where there's sort of like a wall of equations.
Oh, it was just easy for me to write it, to type it out when I was like, for at least for me.
This is great.
So, but yeah, and I'll talk like a lot of this came from the paper that I'll talk about in a bit. But so, and this is the conversion. So you have this is like your GI star calculations, and it goes raster to points. Then it has to be gridded, so it knows that it's going to be in a uniform pattern. Then you initialize a raster. And then your nearest neighbor, that's taken about 8 hours to run. Well, not nearest neighbor, but yeah, I guess nearest neighbor based on distance. And so that's taken about 8 hours to run. And I started it yesterday afternoon, and I guess R crashed last night. So I got in this morning and it wasn't ready, and that kind of sucked. But and to get to G star I, you have to get this include.self to make it so it includes the center points in the weights, weight lists, and so it goes into that. And then right down here is the like the percentile calculations and stuff, which that is actually outdated. It's going to actually be D-norm because P-norm looks like a logarithmic, so up and to the right, but D-norm is a bell curve. So I got to do what's quantile, like just the not the package, but the method, I guess, is called quantile, and so it's going to be able to let me pick the 99th, 95th, and first and fifth, quantile percentiles. So, and it's outputting that as a data frame with 3 columns X, Y, and then basically a Z, but it's really just confidence values. And I commented out this rasterize down here because it was not working for me. So, but yeah, so this is a little bit outdated, but I put this picture in here at like 10 o'clock because I was working on it till then. So, this is the original, like the neighbor of distance 2 GI star calculations, or I guess they're just G star calculations rather, or GI whatever. It's local G without including itself.
Yeah.
But you can kind of see like the high clusters of positive values, and you see some of the negative, like the negative at right here along the creek, right in the middle of the creeks, and you see where there's these kind of raised points and what looks like that. So you have, that's just more slumping along the slope. So a big slide happened, which is what this kind of feature is right here. Big slide happened, and now the whole slope is just kind of slowly slumping down, and so that's what's causing these little ridges of like the high values and the extremely negative values, stuff like that, which was kind of cool. So this is at distance of 2, and then here's a distance of 6. I don't know why. I don't know why this is so much different, but this might actually be the confidence values, probably. But so it's a lot more zeros and stuff, but you can still kind of see the same pattern of the slumping and stuff.
So note on visualization. So it's generally going to be a good idea to use a color mapping that is neutral in the middle.
Okay.
So so it usually is like white for the middle value, and then gets to some other color for the top and bottom. So people often use blue and red. There's the color blindness thing. So if you want to use something else, that's fine. But the reason is then all of this stuff that's kind of in the middle drops out, and then your eye can focus on those extreme values instead of your eye getting drawn to the middle values, which you actually don't care about.
Okay.
The Virgin color map is what you're looking for.
Yeah. And then so now moving on to the death of Anaconda. Matplotlib got corrupted somehow, so I decided to uninstall and reinstall Matplotlib. That broke everything else. So I had to uninstall Conda, and when I reinstalled Conda, Visual Studio decided that it was going to be the primary Python source. And so when I reinstalled Conda and it said, it was like, okay, we'll play together. Well, they didn't play together. One decided to beat up on the other, and Visual Studio took over, and so I couldn't actually do anything with Spider. I couldn't update anything in Conda because it wasn't the primary Python, and so I ended up having to uninstall both and reinstall both. And I spent a lot of time on that this week, which kind of sucked. But
It just came to my mind about how it broke Spider. Is there's like some, I forget what package it is. I think you wrote something about it in a wiki. Sometimes Spider will break.
QT5.
Yes. Like kind of update QT, and then I'll update it, and then it'll work. I don't know why it's messing with other packages, but that's happened to me before.
Yeah, it's a relatively easy fix.
okay, well, I think Visual Studio also had something to do with it.
Probably, yeah.
So
It does suck that they all.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, and you had it installed where Conda was right in your command prompt, like you had it as a local variable.
I don't know.
Yeah, and that's gonna break if you install another. That's why they do the Anaconda prompt. So it's like a separate.
Yeah, that's what I was using with Anaconda.
Okay, weird.
I didn't.
Interesting.
I don't trust myself with regular command prompt except for IP
Yeah.
and stuff. So
Yeah,
that's
running
all.
tree command.
Yeah, no. But yeah, that took about 5 hours. But like that was a 5 hours of me getting a chance to do other things too. So
yeah.
But so the first thing is Anak et al. Which is about large landslides and deep-seated gravitational slope deformations. So basically, when you think about that, is the whole hillside is slowly creeping down the slope. and it was in Southwest Czech Republic. So it's similar to area to around here with some deformation of the rocks, but also a lot of like sediment. So kind of a good way to do it around, like kind of a good mirror essentially. Well, they used the L function, which takes Ripley's K function and the radius and divides it, square roots them. And so they were actually able to graph out the variations in those values based on like, and they were able to type out the landslides, whether it was a rock slide or a debris flow. So whether it's not more water or just straight up rocks, that kind of thing. So it's kind of cool. And so that's what made me really kind of want to look at it, and I've added to my list of things that I'm going to replicate. But it was interesting. Definitely need to read more. It was a quick glance over while I was waiting for Anaconda to install packages and stuff. So yeah, probably more on that next week. And then Schmidt et al., which has been the main focus of that. It is literally the comparison of the different curvature calculations, and Evans, the guy who is probably one of the first, or if not the first, curvature like for GIS applications kind of person. He kind of explained his method more and compared it, and stated how it evolved among other authors, as well as comparing it to other higher order polynomial methods. And so Zevin Bergen, I spelled that name, and Thorne from 1987, they were kind of like the next person. Well, they actually, what they called profile and plan form curvature is actually longitudinal and cross section curvature. So they're different things. So those pictures I showed you earlier may not even be accurate, which is kind of sad, but oh well, part of the learning process. But Z and T, they had a higher order method, and the author claims that no data is error free, which is pretty much true, and that Z and T's method fits the grid exactly, and so it's not very, and therefore that the higher order approaches such as Z and T have much higher sensitivity to a reduced sampling rate. And I would sit there and even extrapolate that to like an increased sampling rate. So because that's going to be more interpolation.
So one of the things I think that we probably need to move to for all of these calculations, you and I talked about this a little bit last night, but a 3x3 grid on a LiDAR data surface, where everything is 1 meter, is a very different calculation than if you're running it on a 30 meter DEM, right? Curvature at that scale is different than curvature at LiDAR scale, right? So all of these functions are built on like the number of these things that are built on the sort of Z1 through Z3, 9 pixels in my 3x3 neighborhood. They're all like that. And the reason is they all used to be programmed in like Fortran. And so the easiest thing to do was to break it down that way. But if you think about what we're really doing, we're fitting a surface, right, to that window. And there are tools now in SciPy that do that, right? So like we don't need to write the fitting with these equations anymore. What we need to do is break this down into a neighborhood of any size and fit a curved surface to that, right? Like there's no reason to do this anymore. And the problem with this is that it's super scale dependent, which we know we don't want, right? And I know for sure that Wood talks about extensions to that. So she gives equations for a 5x5, and I think maybe up to a 9x9, but like don't grab individual pixels anymore, right? I think it's silly, right? That's an artifact of how things were programmed in 1999. So let's just use the capabilities of SciPy to fit them. So I think what we're going to want to do is make a departure in terms of how this stuff works at all. That doesn't mean you shouldn't do what you're doing, but long range stuff, I think that's, and frankly, there's a paper in that, like just maybe we've got better ways to calculate curvature now.
Okay. Yeah. So, okay, I'll have to look into that.
Keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
I'll I'll look into that, and if it looks like it's going to be feasible, then I'll show you what I mean.
All right. Okay. So and then maybe look at the Shi et al. Paper and then like about their curvature calculations, what they did. And I need to switch over to Evans for profile and this Procho, whatever, from Hungary for the tangential. And it's very similar. It just changes the denominator up there. So should not too hard, but not too hard to code. It'll be easy. And yeah, well, they went in and did like a full-on comparison of everything of like 5 authors. So it's kind of nice to find that paper. Goals for next week is to hopefully finish this code for this author, and then I started another one from 2019 a while ago, and now it's about k-means clusters in a window of 39 by 39. So test that one out and see how that goes. And then I want to look into tkinter for Python-based GUI development for my little side project of slope stuff. And I want to read into Dempster-Shafer theory to kind of go on into my a couple of my other articles that I'm replicating.
This term, start to make the shift from R to Python. You're taking the algorithms class with Bill?
Yeah.
You're taking my class. So you're going to be learning a lot more Python this term. The reason it's going to be valuable, and then Jack and I talked about this too, like to get the lab on one common language, it's not to say you shouldn't have a good second language. That's great. You can certainly, there will be times where R is valuable, but if it can be done easily in Python, you should do it in Python. And that's going to keep everybody together.
I'm a fan of R.
Also, just
Shove
look
in
up
something on
the
it.
relative speeds of C, Python, and R. R is by far the slowest,
Really?
by like a lot. So
Yeah.
Python was 16 times slower than C, and R was 270 times slower than C. Just in this little like,
It's a lot.
That checks out with my limited anecdotal experience of people trying to run things in R that are big. Like
Yeah.
for big data stuff, it seems to just choke.
Yeah, I think it's good for like financial stuff. Maybe like
Yeah.
some stats guy in there.
When you start
But
adding
there's
like
so many
graphical
packages
stuff,
too.
that's when it kind of starts.
In
Yeah.
R,
Yeah.
and it's like I guess relatively easy to use. Like Python is like a huge behemoth, like all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
C is kind of old, like kind of very fast, but like
Well, and a lot of the stuff, I don't know what that comparison is like, but there's Cython, which is sort of compiled Python. And a lot of the stuff like in SciPy is compiled in Cython. And so that stuff runs really fast. And if you're taking apart your problem right, the benefits of, there's always a trade-off in terms of development time, run time. So if
Yeah.
it's going to take you 5 hours to develop code in C, but it runs in 2 minutes versus it takes me an hour to develop it in Python and it runs in 10 minutes, like that's still a better investment.
Very well. I guess we'll start switching over to Python now.
I don't know about
Yeah.
geomorphology, but yeah, a lot of the stuff that is
yeah.
GIS
Scientific
based is more Python.
computing is mostly not rapid Python. At least my experience.
R is a good language. I think it's starting to kind of ebb away a little bit. So I wouldn't put your chips on that one.
All right. I'll switch.
I talked about Python last semester with the sci-fi stuff. It's like a weird way of writing code.
Yeah.
Like that would be a learning curve.
I think, yeah, I
It's
think
like- it's
for
a line between the two.
us, like I've never wanted to invest the time in learning Python because again, like I've got better things to do with my time. But the people that are working on SciPy, they do, right? And so then that way, if I need to use a SciPy function, it runs really fast.
Okay. So this is semester goals. I want to get all my scripts written this semester. I think it's a doable task. Now that I kind of know, like, I don't know, I felt like I was kind of like stumbling through this Shi et al. Stuff, trying to figure out what I like needed to do and how to do it. But I think getting 6, 7 of them done in one semester is doable. I think so. Summer and semester. Start of the summer. Choose a study area for analysis and probably visit it, just so I can kind of get understanding of the area. So I'm not going into an area blind.
You're going to need you're going to want multiple study areas, right?
Even if
So
it's county level size.
you're going to want to test on good landslide spots, not necessarily local. If you limit it to local, you're only going to be. I think you want to come out. I mean, it's fine to have a local study area, but you're going to want to run these on multiple. Like when we run our LiDAR algorithms, we don't run it on one spot. We run it on 20 spots because places differ. And if an algorithm that works well in one location may not work well in another location. So that's going to help you sort of assess which algorithm is really better. Otherwise, it's a, it's a single shot. You don't really know
Okay.
how it varies.
Would it be like beneficial to run it on a place that's not slide prone?
Yeah,
Or to get kind of like a,
right.
benchmark
False
or-
positives and things like
Yeah.
that, for sure.
Yeah.
Some of that will come out because if you're using an area that had a landslide, there are always going to be places nearby that didn't have a landslide. So you're sort of incorporating some of that stuff already. But I don't think it's a bad idea to include something that
There's
that. Yeah, that's probably a good point.
So is that something like with the tornado damage stuff? Just like flying over just like a residential area or something like of that nature with no tornado damage and run the algorithm to see what
So
it
it
would
comes
pick
out.
up?
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
So, and then our last semester goal was to begin writing thesis proposal. Well, that got moved up. So I guess let's shorten that down to begin writing thesis.
That's more important than writing the scripts, frankly. You don't want to get that stuff. Number one is the stuff that you can kind of do after your proposal gets approved. Maybe you want to implement one or two of these, but leave the bulk of that stuff later. The proposal is important first because that gets the project sort of approved,
Okay.
and then you do the project. Rather than, frankly, it is weird. A lot of the way people do it is they sort of do the project and then they get the proposal out, which is not ideal. February.
All right. And that's it.
It was great. Thanks.
just me,
I figured we should go.
makes sense. I wanna go.
Anybody have any things on the back end of this that we need to watch out for time on?
The club claim's canceled.
Cloakum? My class. Oh, yeah.
Canceled, but
But it's not.
What time is that? 1:25?
Yeah, over.
Yeah, I hope we're not that long.
Yeah, I gotta get lunch.
Yeah.
yeah, I'll make it pretty quick. Yep, so keywords, cool stuff. Told you guys some stuff already, but got it short. So,
Congrats.
Where's that again?
it's by the Virginia Tech Transportation Institute. It's like CRC across
Oh, okay.
that.
Wow,
Bridge
that's
there.
really close.
Yeah, so it's really close. And
Too bad.
me and
We
my
can
wife
come
are-
visit you. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Well, the interview and stuff, they had to like swipe me in and all that stuff. It's like very under lock and key, and they've got me in like a confidentiality, like no competition agreement, which is kind of intense. So like you can't work any place that's allied discipline for like a year after you terminate your employment, all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, so I can't bring you what they're doing at the lab meeting sadly, which because I would love doing it. But yeah, during the interview, talked a lot about my project, and that was probably half the interview. They were really excited about that, and I brought up some allied projects that kind of were just parallel to what I was researching, like Supervisely, which is like annotation for self-driving cars, as well as the can't remember exactly what it was called, but Papillary. So other like computer vision based segmentation for autonomous cars, and I imagine my research interests will start switching that way towards the end of the semester, looking at like Velodyne and other LiDAR based systems. But yeah, it was cool. They showed me all the cars and the system, and I got to like get under the hood with everything and check it out. But cool, it's exciting.
Do they do like where they ask you to solve a problem or whatever
Yeah.
in the interview?
Well, it was like it wasn't as tense as like maybe like a mechanical engineering position might have been, or like a different position at the company. But it was like, how would you be able to tell if like using code if two polygons intersected in space? Just kind of like tell us the pseudocode of that. So it's good. His name's Carstenson's class actually was a good precursor to that, and I was able to. I sent them the code that I had actually written for it after the fact, and they liked that. So
Great.
Yeah, so I'll start there after the semester ends. Me and my wife are looking for a house closer to this area or an apartment, townhouse. So you guys have connections.
The algorithms class, so Bill's algorithms class, that seems like you guys get a really good chance to program. Like there's a lot of really,
First half of the semester is like no GIS related stuff at all.
yeah, which is really good. Like it's good to break out of that world and know how to do things like, how do you know if point lies within a polygon? You know, like that's
It's basically like doing a lot of stuff without using packages. So building it ourselves. Anyways, yeah, and then prior to the semester ending, I created a GitHub IO page and where I've kind of been hosting everything, and spent over 100 hours plus like over the break coding. It's fun, you know. And now from 1+2, I have like multiple examples. And the idea is to be able to combine certain aspects of interaction. So I've got kind of two separate interaction modalities. One, break casting to Poetry, which is being able to select like certain points. So this kind of example is that, where on a double click, a bounding sphere is placed around the intersected point, which in VR, you have to do that in order to select points for reclassification. So the idea there is I've gotten this section ready to be used, and then it's kind of combining it with the VR aspect, which is interesting. It's got to be kind of tinkered with a little bit more. Go back and I'll show up the VR one. So yeah, the VR aspect is functional in the system. I don't have a headset connected right now, so if there was a headset connected, there'd be a VR button located at the bottom right of the window in order for you to enter it, like on Tuesday or whatever when I was going through the cave. Same kind of like movement to be able to do it. So there's not really any interaction with the point cloud. It's just kind of moving around it using kind of like a fly method. So the goal here is, the hard part is that with this project, Poetry kind of still being developed, it's kind of like parallel developing with it. So I've got their version of VR and then kind of my own, I guess, scrapped together version of VR. There's that little Stanford money again. So, but yeah, a lot of the things like will typically break based off what I'm seeing, trying to combine the two methods. So got to do a lot more digging into JavaScript code to make sure that it's not doing anything. But yeah, based off of like initial standards, I put like a little stats bar at the top left to be able to keep track of frame rate and whether or not things are getting dropped. But yeah, and then hopefully the goal is to consolidate and then have that be the main entryway into the project itself. Yeah, it was quite a bit of downtime over break, so I would not have anything to do at like work and then working on it. So awesome. Yeah, so like Dr. Fingal mentioned, he bought the Oculus Quest, which is really good for demos. We used it yesterday on one of the VR applications, the page, and it worked really well. But yeah, obviously it's limited to just being able to fly around the scene. So the hope is to be able to initiate some sort of teleport method, like at the bottom right kind of portrays a lot of video game type scenes. Incorporate that, so where you kind of just place a counter or a spot on the floor in order to teleport to that position and have your camera kind of fixate to that position. So probably we'll have to do some sort of like transparent ground or floor on the Poetry point cloud, unless it can detect the ground there. But yeah, and then also in regards to that is this kind of paintbrush interaction. So like the little spherical thing popped up when I double clicked on the point cloud. Having that be done with the controller itself, being able to be like the sphere outside of the flush room or whatever, to be sized from really small to capture only a couple points to really big to capture a whole set of points. And there's implementations of that in like paintbrush thing where you can slide up and down the size of it, the stroke. And yeah, so that is kind of the in works of development, and then goals.
What if you had like a, sorry, sort of thinking out loud here. What if you had like your sphere, instead of like double clicking on a point and it making a sphere, what if you had a sphere that you could like move around, like
Right.
drag?
So the point is to have like the laser controls with the sphere at the end
Right.
of it, and then sliding up and down makes the sphere bigger or smaller. And then anytime that sphere collides with point
Right.
cloud,
And you can drag it, right? Like park it there, park it there, park
Yeah.
it there. Yeah, that's a good idea, because then you're checking against sphere and not the point cloud, which is going to be way cheaper.
Yeah.
Good.
so it will have to understand what's encapsulated into the sphere.
Right.
But yeah, that's kind of the nuts and bolts of having to dig into the code and expose some sort of functionalities that are kind of embedded in both 3GS and Poetry.
Poetry's got a selection via sphere, or not sphere, cube, right? Easier to implement with a cube, just
The
logistically.
cube's a little bulky, and you have to like go in and X with XYZ like manually in order to do. It's more volumetric based,
Yeah.
rather than extraction or like selection based. But yeah, there's definitely underpinnings or underworkings of that kind of system to be
What
able
if it was
to-
like you've used SketchUp before?
Yes.
Yeah, SketchUp lets you like drag a shape in and out, and you can do something like that.
Yeah, that's what I'm. So they have that's like the volumetric or
Right.
kind of configuration of it, but it's like it's just for calculating the volume at that point. So I imagine you could rework it in order to export or isolate or select stuff. But yeah, that's kind of the goals of the near future. Kind of digging into that and exposing some of the functionality to work for my personal game, which sounds good. But yeah, and then getting all those together, kind of organizing it, and then popping in a paper write-up for AutoCorto, and reach out to Shoots, who's the creator of Poetry. So he's kind of pushing out development procedures, and stuff can break at any point. So kind of telling him roadmap-wise what the goal is, and see if he has any kind of thoughts on how to proceed. So, but that's it.
Great.
Press it back here.
Yeah.
And yeah. Too far back. Oh wait, no.
Clicked it once.
Forward, yeah. And then you have to.
It's like the little cloud looking thing there.
Yeah.
And then
All right, so I had a very eventful break. Literally. Okay. So, wanted to give y'all a little update as to why some things I have not been as productive as I'd like to be over break. So, did not go to Key West. That's me in the ER. I went there twice. It was fun. Turns out it was my gallbladder. So I had that removed.
Oh wow.
Yeah. They also switched medications for me for my narcolepsy because the other one was starting to cause chest pains, which is not good. So I've been adjusting with that and also recovering from surgery this past week, as well as I was in pain for the entire break. So that was fun. I did go to the Inca Roads exhibit. It was really cool. So that is a picture of Akita, which is what they use for communication. I've brought it up before in lab. I think their concept of them is so cool because like you're literally telling so much information without having like what we would consider a formal writing system, but like kind of was their formal writing system in a way. But they also, it was nice because it had like all sorts of different things about the empire and like what preceded it and how it was influenced by some of the earlier stuff, the earlier empires and or not empires, but like the earlier civilizations that were in the area and how it grew from there. It was interactive, which was really nice. I always appreciate those exhibits. I feel like I get more out of them. But they also had like a sample of how the bridges were made, and it was just made out of grass. Which like, what? For a whole bunch of llamas and people. So they somehow managed to make bridges out of grass that could hold like 2,500 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was just a really interesting exhibit to go through just because it like talked about how it like expanded and how the Inca roads were actually built upon some of the earlier paths that were used by the civilizations that came before it. And it also had like details on the different districts because it had like 4 big districts that were part of the empire, and like then the city was split up, the capital city was split up into 4 distinct sections with people from each of those different bigger districts like kind of paying need to, which is like they come in and do work as like a tax. So it was like kind of cool to find out that like it was a lot. It was really organized. I mean, it had to be as big as it was. It's just a really cool exhibit. I think it's there until June this year. So if anyone else wants to go break.
Okay.
I did go to the USGIF job fair. It's good practice with networking and like talking to people. Most of them required a TS, so can't really do anything for them. But my uncle also pointed this out because he's kind of in the industry, but like he's an electrical engineer. But he like works a lot with these people with like Planet, and he told me about them. And they had a model of their satellite that was like, they have a bunch of satellites that are like this big.
Yeah.
That was really cool.
The CubeSats over there.
I don't remember. Little itty bitty satellites that like.
Yeah.
Their imagery's okay.
Yeah. I was planning on going to this and it just like snowed that day. I was like, well,
It did.
I can go.
I drove back in the snow, but it was only 10 minutes away, so it's fine.
So I
It
know
was near where my brother worked.
a lot of people will like start with a government job because the government will sort of pay for your clearance, and then they'll get out of government and start making real money in private sector.
Well, I know NGA, if you get an internship there, you do get your TS.
Yeah, yeah.
My friend Dalton worked there.
Those programs are really good. So if you're interested, I did one like that, and Sam did one like that. So they're worthwhile.
Yeah, I'm really picky, so I'm not as interested in defense as I am like working in national parks. So it's been interesting. But I thought I got some pretty good practice there, like just gaining some confidence and talking to people in the industry about stuff.
Yeah, it's really important to kind of get experience interviewing. You don't want your first interview to be the job you really want. You want to sort of practice and you get better at it.
We had a 1-credit class at JMU that was like, this is how you write a cover letter. This is how you write a resume. This is how you do an interview.
That's great.
Like, it's been really helpful with like going through and figuring out stuff.
Maybe
It's
click on it maybe.
Really push the mouse up and put it down.
Maybe
Mouse
there
is-
is
Oh
also-
yeah, it's like at the bottom.
Oh.
Yeah.
You turn it off, turn it back on again. No, on this one. I don't know. Might have died.
That's the one.
Right.
It's been an
Just
issue
lose
for
the
me.
connection.
Yeah, it's been, yeah,
Yeah. Even like over there right next to the computer. It's been like,
Oh, really?
I think the battery.
Going off of
Batteries.
that. Looking for internships. The NASA Develop thing is open, so I'm gonna try applying to that this weekend. That one seems really cool to me because it's a remote sensing position. We get to work for NASA, so like NASA. And also Timmins Group. I have a couple of friends from JMU that work at Timmins Group, so like my mom's like, you gotta use those connections, and I'm like, yep. So trying to look at places where I also know people who know how I work. I applied to 7 different internships last year and got to the interview with 2 and did not get any. But I got an interview. I read through the paper that you sent me over, Greg, and it was really interesting. It was about different, like, so the mountains aren't, basically because of climate change, mountains have become easier to look at from an archaeological standpoint. And that's what I've come across through a couple of different papers. So like, it sucks that stuff's melting, but like, we also get the chance to look at how things were in the past.
It's a good thing.
The one small silver lining, but we've also developed technologies so we can analyze the areas better. So like, climate change, the melting hopefully should stop. We should still be able to look at stuff, but I was looking at movement through the Caucasus Mountains, or the Caucasus, and it like, just to see if there were any ways to like, instead, it did something called cumulative cost path, which is just like a bunch of different least cost paths and like looking for patterns in them, see if there's like any connections. And so most of the stuff that they found was like, it moved from east to west around along like rivers in the area, which kind of makes sense. Like, I would assume just based off of what I think of with rivers, like, usually nice to travel along. And then I started my least cost path math practice with Rademacher. I haven't finished it yet, so that's a goal for next week. I forgot to write goals. My first week back.
That's all right. I think I
But
forgot to write goals.
I'm gonna finish this up. I want to try to become more confident doing least cost paths. So I'm probably gonna just run some practice examples of places that I already have data for, like Harrisonburg. So much data for Harrisonburg. But just become more familiar with it and do more stuff. And then other goals include working on the proposal, which I found out about today. And
Did you find out about today? Like that we're gonna do one?
yeah,
Oh,
well, no,
fine.
I knew I was gonna do one, but the deadline got moved up a lot sooner than,
Ah,
like, I didn't know when it was gonna be.
it's not as hard as it sounds.
That was one of the things we had to do in that one credit class was write practice. So like, I don't know, but I'm gonna probably.
Going old faithful. I could,
No,
you run over to Karen's get a battery for it.
What does it take?
I was looking at it, I couldn't figure out how to get into the battery.
Oh.
I have a mouse in my little drawer.
I was like,
Probably one of the like, it's like probably one of the wash batteries.
Yeah, there we go.
Uh,
Or we could just.
I've got a wireless mouse.
there's one on this computer.
Yeah, should we just wired mouse it or wireless? You got one.
Kind of out of spots to plug it into. Those two are being used up.
Oh, yeah.
Go on the back.
Jim,
we need like a whole like port thing
Yeah,
and just
can we-
USB things.
maybe like a USB 3.0 or multi extender over there.
Sure.
Something about it.
Yeah.
Or get, they have ones that you can do auxiliary power with, so you can push the hard drives.
Yeah, sometimes these things don't work well when they're kind of buried, but we'll give it a shot.
Yeah.
Or I could just drive the car. That's all right.
do that.
Not getting stuck with a keyboard.
Yeah.
Literally stopped you from doing what you were needed to do.
Because I was just spamming tab, trying to get over there.
Oh, shoot, sorry.
No, that was me. I was just
Is the
pressing
mouse
too many
working?
buttons and didn't like it.
Sticky key.
Is it working now? Oh, sort of. Here, keyboard again.
Too far.
It's all mine. It's all mine.
I think it's a, what's that?
It's
song?
a colloquialism.
Yeah,
Right, the salt means lines, you go back
yeah,
here.
what's that song though? It's like 16 tons.
I
I
don't know.
don't think I've ever used
One.
Okay, so I'm back. I spent a lot of my break taking pictures of birds, which is good because I learned a lot more about how cameras work and how to use them and stuff, which might be a useful skill.
It totally is, yeah.
So, yeah, my parents let me borrow the DSLR. They have like 12 years old or something, but like it's still like they don't use it, so I have it like basically mine now.
They last a long time.
Yeah,
They're
well,
worth the investment.
and I was reading about it, like the specific model I have, and people like it because it's pretty small and lightweight as far as DSLRs go, and it has some different. I don't know all the different sensor types and stuff, but apparently this one is one of Nikon's best color representing sensors. The camera came out like 06 or 07. But anyways, those are some of the bird pictures I took.
We should print them off the lab.
They're
Or
good
for the.
They're good duck hunting and stuff for them.
I think so. I don't know. But I see lots of. Oh, those are loons.
Okay.
But there are a good bit of ducks by my house, mainly bubbleheads and some mergansers. But I live in like salt water.
Right.
I know there's people hunt more wood ducks and some teal. Yeah, that's what I mostly see. But, yeah. There are a couple of bald eagles flying around my house. I passed Part 107. Yeah, so I'm legal. And I looked up this morning. I'll get they're processing the permanent parts from December 13th. So, yeah, that's nice to get that out of the way. It's a lot easier than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
Y'all made it sound like it was like super hard to study, fairly hard. And then like the day before, I took a practice test the day before and I got like a 96 on it. I was like, oh, and it took in like 15 minutes. I just like flew through all the questions. So yeah, I probably spent more time than necessary on that. So next thing is a paper review that was off my to-do list about reconstructing the fluvial surface with a personal mobile laser scanning. Basically, it's like that backpack thing, laser scanner, you just walk around. So the goal was to compare the performance of that to a traditional one that they just like mount on a tripod. And so they both work in the same way. Like I said, it's just not a backpack. So they
What unit was it, do you think?
they said the specific models. I don't remember. Yeah, it says in here. I don't remember what it was though.
Sure.
But so this is a map of the point density. So the more intense red is higher point density. So you can really clearly see where like, the path they took around. And so overall, it's much higher because it's just constantly scanning while you move around. Whereas the traditional TLS, you have to both take the time to get set up at like the specific point, figure out exactly where it is, let it scan for a little bit, and then take it to the next point. So you get both better point density, and it's just easier to do. And comparing it to other methods, we'll just TLS and structure for motion. It has some big advantages, mainly the weather. It doesn't really matter. Like structure for motion drones, you can't fly in high winds or like if it's super cold or maybe make it ice some of the colors or anything like that. Another thing about structure promotion they mentioned were systematic errors. They didn't really talk about what that was, but they mentioned some papers, so I'm going to read those. But it seems like it's a really useful tool, and for what I'm doing, I kind of almost feel like it could be better than structured promotion, because weather is something I'm worrying about, since it is going to be kind of a drive to a steady location.
Mhm.
If I can just like, and beaches aren't super wide, like if I can just like walk down back,
Sure.
I'll get everything I need.
Yeah.
And yeah, not having to worry about wind or stuff. And I think you could probably even do this at night because it's not a camera, it's
Sure.
lasers.
Yeah.
Which might also be better if in like the summertime. You beach is like really crowded with people, that could
Yeah.
totally mess up your like digital service model. You're just kind of like people walking around. It's gonna look like
And people will sit there and ask you questions and bother you.
Yeah, that
I'm
is
not saying
super
that,
annoying.
but like they're gonna, it's just
Yeah.
gonna be like, they're gonna be in the way and they're gonna.
yeah.
So
And-
Earl went
might
around and did this at the buildings at NIU, and like, yeah, everyone would just stop to
Yeah.
talk to him. I mean,
Yeah.
he's a
Yeah.
friendly guy, so he
Oh,
liked
yeah.
it, but I would be like pulling my hair out.
yeah.
And sometimes they'd be like, are you shooting me with a camera? Like, they might sit there and freak out about that.
But it's totally legal. It's public.
Yeah, but people are stupid. You
Yeah.
don't know that.
But anyways,
Yeah.
the other big advantage is like flying, like rules about flying, or like
Yeah.
What
like you're not
airspace?
supposed to fly. Yeah, well, yeah, I did check the airspace for some of the areas I'm looking at, which I'll get to in my goal slide. This one,
They
right?
get night flight certified.
Yeah, well, there's that, and also
Really?
you're not supposed to fly over heavily populated areas, which beach could, like in the
Right.
summertime, would be. So just that has me thinking a lot about doing that. Yeah.
Stuff
Yeah, I
to
can do
tape.
that.
Sir, you're arrested for causing panic.
The only downside is something I'm also reading about now, is structured promotions that you can kind of get with imagery from waves. I don't know if it's super good, but they said that you can't get any from this. Which kind of stinks, but I guess there's compromises, whatever you end up doing.
Yeah.
But it seems really neat, and I'm pretty interested in potentially using this.
You've seen the stuff we did on like photogrammetry from a stick, right?
Yeah, I saw that. I guess that could be.
Potentially at the same time, right, as your,
Yeah, and I was looking into this plain old TOS, which I guess seems worse than the mobile stuff in like every regard.
yeah, I wouldn't want to try the tripod stuff. That'd be,
Yeah, and also
Mind-numbing.
all the papers are from like mid-aughts, so like I think it's just good.
Yeah. So the unit would be, yeah, we'll have to sort of figure out what units they are, how much they cost, and whether anybody on campus has one. If you're interested. in that.
Yeah.
It would be, like, the reason it doesn't penetrate the water is because it's in the near infrared, like the laser. I mean, there might be some other wavelengths or.
Yeah, I
some
was
other
thinking about
systems
that
can
too.
Penetrate the,
The problems I would think of would be you would have all kinds of weird angles that you're hitting the water, and then you have to deal with the
fraction
refraction,
of it.
which might not be as difficult as I'm thinking about it, but it might.
It might be.
When they do like bathymetric LiDAR, I'm pretty sure they use green.
Yeah, green and blue.
wavelengths. Yeah.
And I'm thinking it might also be possible to use the same methods you use for structure motion. If you can get figure out the wave parameters like length and height and stuff, that's how they get it from structure motion, is driving it through the waves, not just from like looking at the bottom.
So based on the height of the wave, you can tell how deep the
Yeah,
water
the
is.
height and length are the most important things. The wave as it starts to feel about like stand up and change shape a little bit. But yeah, so goals this semester are start out looking for study areas that won't take too much driving. I'm thinking either Virginia Beach area, which is about 5 hours away-ish, or Charleston, which is 6 hours away. The advantage is I would like be able to stay at home. Like I also know the beaches there. So I'm kind of leaning towards there. 'Cause it's, at that point, it's kind of a marginal difference. It's an overnight trip, probably, anyways. Just want to start working on the SRTM error stuff because I haven't really done much.
Yeah, let's wrap that up. That shouldn't be more than, I mean, that's just a matter of sort of running
Yeah, just
20 or
start
30
running
tiles through the tool.
Yeah. And also I want to read about these systematic errors. This one paper seems like it's a pretty thick review of the use of airborne structure motion in geomorphometry. And there's another one I want to read too. And then I guess, yeah, also get started on the proposal. And look, oh yeah, and I should have put this up, look more into the MLS stuff. And maybe, do we still have this stuff, equipment Earl used? I know so there's the backpack.
So the LiDAR unit belonged to NIU, but the puck we have here is essentially the same thing. So
Do you think that
yes,
ESO thing would work?
hopefully, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So we basically reconstruct what Earl did, and I can walk you. We can build a mobile unit. So whatever they did, we've done. But they might have a better tool that they liked. But yeah, we should be able to do something, and hopefully the Intel works like I hope it's going to work. That'd be good because then it's not. You're testing a new method in addition to the content, so that's always nice if you can push ahead on two fronts.
Yeah.
Is there like a way through like ROS or for reconstruction purposes to have it like be simultaneously reconstructing as it's capturing?
It can
Like
always
a
do that, yeah.
laptop
Yeah.
On your back as well.
Yep, they all.
Bellovue.
What's that?
Bellovue.
So Bellovue reads it. Bellovue doesn't
Bellevue
reconstruct it.
displayed it too.
It displays it, but it
Oh.
doesn't reconstruct a point cloud. What you're seeing is a frame by frame reconstruction, not a aggregate. But ROS will do that, and they will allegedly do it in real time. Although that's less important than. It's cool. It's cool. It tends not to be as important for field work. So if you can take like the HACT5 data logger, you just walk up and down the beach, and then when you go home that night, you reconstruct it.
And then another thing I forgot to put on here, I want to tag, I guess maybe I won't be using drones, who knows? But I want to tag along with someone like Riley, who's lights up again.
Yep.
Just see how it works and stuff, so I don't just figure it out by myself.
Yep, that's all better.
Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, that's about it. That's it for me.
Send us home.
No mouse. Just
Go get the boy batted.
Yeah, she
dissected.
Hacked into it. No, we'll just pull up with that. I pushed the wrong links to scroll to the bottom. Yeah, right there. Sweet. Top right. So we quick on too many slides. So I made it through the first week of school. It's all good. It's a long one.
80 hours.
In progress, the Virginia Space Grant Consortium proposal in Part 107, which I'll talk about. Two cool events coming up next week. Me and Dr. Pingler meet with Mike Sporer of National Weather Service just to kind of update, see where we are on the interface a little bit. And then Esri conference is coming up. I'm going with VT, so they're going to pay for the ticket, so I have to figure out housing and all that stuff.
You just talk to you might talk to
Okay.
like you might talk to them.
So he
Something out a while ago.
yeah, a while ago, and then I guess they were looking for one more grad student. I saw it on my email. Like when I woke up in the morning, I just responded real quick. I was like, I want to go.
Yeah.
So he's like, yeah,
They had 10 slots, like 7 for undergrads.
free for
For the department.
yeah. So it's not going to the last one. Yeah. Oh, I forgot that those are old fiscals. So ignore those. Next one.
You got it.
Yeah. VSGC, Virginia Space Grant Consortium. Consortium. I don't know how to say it.
It depends on what school
Oh.
That one. So they do a bunch of cool grants, and they and it seems like they're kind of like a big, like they're a decent organization that gives a lot of grants to Virginia grad students for kind of various things. They have a big partnership with NASA, but one of the things that they're running is the Graduate Research STEM Fellowship, and that's just $6,000 added support to supplement your research. And it has to be kind of NASA, tied to somewhere in the mission area. So me and Dr. Pingo have been working on that. I have a fair amount of work to do, so I'll be just typing all weekend, cranking it out. It's work well spent because then I'll have a good framework for a proposal. So yeah. Then part 107, Jack's legal. I'm illegal, so I haven't gotten that done. I was supposed to take it. Yeah, they're breaking the 400 feet rule, or
Actually, they're within 400 feet of a tall obstacle, so they're good.
Oh, no.
They are good, yeah.
Yeah. Except for the running into-
Yeah, exactly.
Depends if they cause any damage or not.
There's like $2,000.
Oh, it looks like they flew over people though. Hold on.
Oh,
Well, yeah, they're in the middle of the city.
Oh, yeah.
That's I thought it was closed, but what about what's the dollar amount rule for any time that you damage something?
Basically, it's a dollar amount rule.
I thought there was a dollar amount rule.
There is, yeah, yeah.
$200,
I thought it was
$600,
300.
$300 damage.
Anything that requires a
Overnight hospital.
overnight hospital.
Right. Is the Space Needle okay?
Yeah.
Refund the brand new Space Beagle.
Yeah.
The needles up there.
So yeah, I was supposed to take it last week at the Roanoke Airport. I called Blacksburg a while ago and I was like, hey, the Blacksburg Airport. And I said, can I take it? And like, some guy at the front desk out there was like, oh, I think that place is closing or something, or they're out of business.
What?
So they're either closing, or out of business. So I'll figure out what's going on with them. But I scheduled for Roanoke, and they called me twice to say that they just found out that they can't schedule tests. So I doubt about the just found out part. But there's a new registration service, the PSI. I'm just gonna write a wiki about it, so everyone who takes it after me knows just like how to knock it out here.
Yeah.
Kind of a pain, but I will get that done. That's on my goals.
So the Blacksburg Airport, did you talk to the people at that little, it's like a flight school that does it, right?
Yeah, I called like the front desk of the airport or whoever's like the main reception.
So you haven't talked to the flight school itself yet?
No, I'm gonna call them and ask them.
Yeah, I would do that just to double check and see
Yeah.
what the deal is, because sometimes they just like they had moved there from somewhere else, so that I would get the lowdown from that.
Yeah.
They'll know. Sure.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I went through the PSI online. I didn't even check. I just got the info there, and it was just a normal testing center, wasn't anything like they're just administer all kinds of like
yeah,
tests for
that's good. Okay,
Yeah, that seems like a good idea. Just go to like
or testing center.
yeah, like where you take the GRE or something like that. Yeah, so work in progress. Oh yeah, did we set a name for the computers yet?
Yeah, but we will.
Okay.
Yep, no, that's still on my agenda, so
Sounds
we
good.
haven't gotten to it yet, but we will.
I saw on Reddit someone names theirs after spaceships and space programs, so I thought that was kind of cool idea. Throw that in there.
The British had the best worship names.
Yeah, what are they?
Warspite.
Yeah, Warspite,
I like that, like,
Indefatigable,
yeah.
like
Yeah, we should do that.
invincible, like
Yeah.
Okay.
What else? Good
Yeah, and then one of my pet projects is building home server, so I'm trying to find a good name for it. So like, I think Anton's a good one. But it's from that show down there. That's what it gets from. They're running their own home server, and they had jammed the breakers open to get enough power to their servers. And they had too many people on their stuff, so the cooling shut down, and they caught the computers on fire.
Call it Jarvis.
Yeah. So goals for next week, just work a ton on the proposal. That's what we'll be doing all weekend, typing away and get a couple more passes before we submit it, which is due Thursday or Friday, but I want it done before then. Schedule part 107 and figure out what's going on with that one airport. Low priority goals is just pushing out that digitizing project. I have it all done, but I'm gonna film like a tutorial so that they can follow it and do it. So the idea is to get all those like a bunch of undergrad students that want to work out on the project or work with the project to digitize and do kind of like some imagery stuff, and then we'll compile it and we'll get like a true data set from it. And then the BT meeting next week. And that's all I got.
Sounds good. All right. Good meeting, everybody. It's nice to be back.
Yeah.
Way better than doing it over Zoom.
Mhm.
Is that camera out of focus?
Yeah.
Or was it just me?
I think it's spelled.
Yeah. It's